everyone. Happy Friday and happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes, I'm Irish, so I have to put that out there. I'm Meaghan Zimba, and today on Mavens of Manufacturing, I have with me Emily Henry. How are you, Emily?
I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you, Megan?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad we were able to set something up because we met a while ago at a Siemens event. They did a
Yeah,
Women in Technology event in Washington, D.C., and that was such a great event. Like
so incredible. Mind
I
opening. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Washington, DC. That was my first time in the city. And we went to the history museum that's out there, the
History.
Smithsonian
Yeah.
History Museum. And they had a really great women's dedicated display there. And I was just completely blown away by that because it showed the history of women and some of the
All
struggles
throughout,
that
yeah,
we've
U.S. history.
yeah, it was awesome. So, I'm glad that I met you because you were one of the
Same.
nicest people that I met there, and we started talking about FIRST Robotics, and you got me
Yeah.
connected to the Wisconsin chapter, so I'm really excited about that. But I want to hear more about you. So, can you start off just saying who you are, what you do, and the company that you work for?
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, my name is Emily Henry. My background's in electrical engineering, but currently I work as a project development engineer for aeSolutions. And aeSolutions is a process safety life cycle kind of consulting engineering company. So
Okay.
we have myriad capabilities, but I would say our major focus is in process safety, how we can help design systems to mitigate hazards for clients. So we can do things like all the way as early on as risk assessment to figure out, hey, what does your facility have hazards wise? What might you need to put into place design and hardware wise to close those hazard gaps, if you will? And we can conceptually design, build those systems, test those systems, and go help commission them in the field, things like that. We have a ton of different capabilities. So I'm excited to be able to assist clients in really working through the whole safety life cycle.
That's really cool. So, how did you get involved with engineering? Because the percentage for women engineers is not very high. It's low. And
Yeah.
a lot of women that I've talked to, if they're in engineering, it's because they had a family member that inspired them to be in engineering or it was something they kind of fell into by accident. There seems to be a higher percentage in manufacturing positions and like sales and marketing positions, but engineering, we're still kind of struggling getting women representation. So how did you discover that this was the space for you and how did your journey lead you to where you are at aeSolutions?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that's so interesting talking about family members being a big player. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anyone in my immediate or even slightly extended family who's an engineer. Um, I like you mentioned early on. I really got into engineering because of FIRST robotics. In high school, I didn't get exposed to it earlier than high school, which there are groups for middle school kids and
Mhm.
even younger kids. But I started robotics as a way to hang out with my friends. I was like part of the group of kids who was like, oh, I don't necessarily want to run track, but this
Yeah.
robotics thing seems like it could be fun. So I
If you run track though, you can join first. It's not
exactly, you can do both if you're a rock star. I mean, more power to you. So I was really interested in the kind of the wiring piece. So we in First Robotics, if people aren't super familiar, it's for the high school age kids to design robots that need to play a specific game. These robots
Mhm.
are like 5 foot by 3 foot, like they're hefty, a couple 100 pound robots. And so you take a few weeks in the spring to design them with mentors who volunteer, which could be family members or local professionals. And I was primarily involved with wiring things up and getting the robot to perform those tasks as a result of programming. So it really exposed me to a number of disciplines in engineering just by being involved with FIRST. You can get exposure to mechanical engineering with actually building and machining parts. You can get electrical engineering exposure, programming exposure, even public speaking. I was
Yeah.
part of the group who would pitch our designs to judges at the competitions. and ask for grant funding, things like that. So it at a high school age gave me a really great picture of so many different things that you could do just by getting involved in STEM and engineering. So it was kind of the only thing that got me even remotely a direction for what I would major in college. And I decided to start off in electrical engineering, and really enjoyed that and kept going with it.
That's really cool. I like the fact too that it was something that your school had going on, and because not every school has a FIRST robotics team,
Exactly.
and I'm really trying in my own personal community to get that going. So next weekend I'm really excited because I'm going to a competition in Milwaukee, and I'm going to meet with Jane. Jane is her name, or Jan. Jane. I'm going to
Yeah.
meet with her, and she's going to show me around, and I get to talk to some of the students, which I'm
Yeah.
really excited about.
That'll be
And
awesome.
I'm actually bringing the director of the VOTEC program from the school that I graduated from. She's going to meet me there and she's going to check it
Wonderful.
out. Yeah. So I think it's a great way too, just to expose kids to what engineering is.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just the engineering and manufacturing skills, but it's also the soft skills. So you mentioned you had to pitch your idea and get grant funding, and those are real life things that adults have to do when
Yep.
they have a project and they need funding for. So it's a great combination of all those. When you were doing that, do you remember what companies you worked with or were affiliated with that? Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, aeSolutions was part of that early on. It's been a whole weird, like, full circle journey for me. Um, the space that we worked on our robots in was actually it's kind of helped in getting dedicated to us with aeSolutions, because there's kind of a business park here in upstate South Carolina that aeSolutions does their panel fabrication in, and one of those similar spaces in the same business park they helped us get set up in. So I would go and work on the robot, and it would be in an aeSolutions space, and I really had no conscious idea that that company was, somebody I
But
would look towards.
that's such a great point, though, because even though you weren't conscious of it, like you're still getting exposure to that brand. And then AE is thinking long term. So, yes, the return on investment not be immediate,
Right.
but they gained a worker now. Like,
Yeah, so they were
so,
one of them. Companies like Bosch Rexroth and Michelin here in
yeah,
upstate South Carolina were supporters. So we just have a lot of manufacturing in general in upstate South Carolina. So there are a good number of different engineering firms. We've got Fluor, we've got Jacobs. So a lot of local engineers have kids in high schools that do first up here. So
that's
we're
awesome.
fortunate to get that kind of involvement.
That's super cool. This is completely tangent. So
Yeah.
yesterday, well, it's related, I promise. But yesterday I went to an event called Sips and Startups. So in the community that I live in, they have a generator program, and small entrepreneurs or small businesses can come in and pitch what their business is, and then they network and they get ideas and get help. And the speaker they had yesterday, she owns an online tailoring company, and she was having a problem with like tracking her stuff. So she got some information about RFID
Yeah.
tagging and scanning, and she didn't even know that was a thing that existed. But the one thing that got me really excited is I was sitting next to an 18-year-old that just graduated high school. He was homeschooled for most of his life, and then he went to different high schools online and
Okay.
then graduated in Economowoc. But what he does is he does programming for battle bots,
Oh, wow.
and he's trying to get competitions set up in Wisconsin. And I'm like, I'm going to talk to you after this
That's
because I have a
great.
ton of connections for you. And he goes, the whole thing is, though, is not many people outside of the circle that are involved in battle bots. He's like, not many people know this even exists. And I'm like, I'm going to help you because
That's
we
great.
need to get people to exist. And I asked him about FIRST Robotics, and he goes, he's like, I really like that program. He's like, it helps with like the soft skills and everything like that. He's like, but where I see the difference with BattleBots, he's like, it's actually like real time engineering problems too. Like if
Mhm.
something breaks, you have to come up with a fast decision to fix it so that you can go on to the next competition. So he's like, I just feel like with the coding and everything, it's more in line with what companies are doing. And I'm like, you're 18 years old and you're already talking like you're 30. I was super impressed.
Wow.
So
So cool.
I'm gonna be working with him. And yeah, so I'm super excited to get involved with First more and
I'm
just
so glad.
see what we can do. But I wanna
Yeah,
remain focused on you and talk
sure.
about some more of your stuff. So project development engineer, not something that I've heard a lot. So can you kind of break down what that is and like some of your daily responsibilities? Because I hear like mechanical engineer and electrical engineer, and I have a friend that's a chemical engineer, and then she was talking about fluid engineer. I'm like, there's so many different
So
types of
many.
engineers, but project development one is a new one for me. So can you kind of just break that down and explain what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, yeah. Full disclosure, I'm a bit new to the position, but
Okay.
the direction that I've got and the reason I've moved into it is essentially project development pertains to engineering projects with multiple disciplines. So
Okay.
a project that might need many different phases involving electrical engineers and maybe civil structural engineers, um, the chemical engineers, like everybody coming together and influencing a design. There has to be somebody who can kind of cohesively move things along, make sure that the project uh, stakeholders have what they need and are getting the support they need to move forward. So
Gotcha.
one of
Okay.
the ways I kind of got approval to move into this position from my own company management was my experience in refining as my first job was key in helping me see all those disciplines play out. Because if you're in a manufacturing plant or refinery, what have you, and you work a maintenance outage, for example, you're going to see every single one of those contractors out in the field having to interact. The mechanical piece has to line up with the electrical piece, has to line up with the scheduling piece. The
Mm-hmm.
vendors getting you the hardware have to line up. So it's a lot of coordination and enough knowledge to be dangerous in multiple fields. So I've been able to see a lot of different um, disciplines working in plants, and I have an awareness of what things need to happen through a larger project scale.
Gotcha.
After working in things like those large outages, and so now I get to assist in looking at kind of, okay, what is the division of responsibility on this
Mm-hmm.
project between maybe a client that I'm helping and any other contractors that are needed. aeSolutions might have 3 or 4 different engineering disciplines ourselves working on something for somebody. So I'm essentially trying to help be the glue and make sure that no balls get dropped and things can move along smoothly, and we don't miss any sort of necessary task that could prevent a downstream deliverable from fitting into the overall schedule.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a project manager, but more
with
engineering
with
focused.
more, yeah, with more engineering knowledge, and being able to influence things as needed on the technical side.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, so it sounds like you need a lot of great communication skills and ability to get along with different personalities because
Yep.
I'm guessing that, if you're coming from a different type of background, your personality is going to be a little different. So, what other types of skill sets are important to be successful in this type of position? Because I just want to give people an idea of, yeah, you might not be necessarily good at math or science, but if you have these skill sets, that's something maybe you can improve on. Because I like suck at math and science, and that's why I'm so good at English and I'm able to connect people and glue
Yeah.
stories together. So, what other skill sets help you be successful in this type of position?
I think, yeah, foremost, like you mentioned, communication is the biggest thing I've learned in my earlier years, that over communicating is never a bad thing. I can, I can write an awesome engineering report and design and put it out into the world, and if I don't communicate with the people directly and make sure they read what I wrote, then we might still have issues in the field. It's happened. So yeah, over communicating is something I feel good about. Making sure foremost that you are communicating clearly what you want heard. And I
Mm,
like to repeat back what I hear from others and make sure they know, okay, this is what I got from you. This is what I think you expect of me.
that's a
And
good idea.
keep everybody on a level playing
Yeah.
field. So that's helpful a lot with working oftentimes as a remote consultant. I can work from
Okay.
home with aeSolutions for part of my job, and so I'm not always directly at a client site. And working, on virtual calls, that's even more key to make sure. Okay, I'm not physically with you in a room pointing at the same piece of paper, but here's what I hear you need from me. Here's what I expect to give you. Please confirm that type of thing. So
That's
yeah,
that's a good tip. I like
yeah.
that a lot. And I think
Thanks.
it's cool that you're able to work from home and solve some of these big problems because I think if the pandemic did us any favors, it showed that we can be a little flexible depending on our position. Um,
Definitely.
where we're at. So we have people in the comment section. Hank, I love him. So he has two daughters.
Hi, Hank.
He calls them the junior board of directors. He
Love
just
it.
posted today with one of his daughters welding something.
Oh
And I
wow.
was like, this is awesome. Like, love that. Keep that up.
So
But
cool.
he goes on the field, so sometimes he can't stay and watch the whole episode. And then we have Parkash. I think I messed up your name. So sorry if I
Hi.
did. And then we also have Vince over communicating rules. Yes,
Thanks.
I
Yep.
agree with that. It's funny because as a tech writer, I have to get information out of the experts, and sometimes engineers are not the most communicative bunch of the group, and they'll give me like one word answers, and I'm just like, no, you need to like get into the nitty. Well, why? You should know that. No, I don't know that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not the expert. Like, you need to explain this to me. Like, it's kind of like that scene, if you're a fan of the show The Office, where um, Mike was just telling Oscar, explain this to me like I'm five. Like,
Explain it to me like a 5. Yeah.
yeah, just break it
Oh yeah.
down.
Especially, I would say, working as a project development engineer may also include bringing up kind of junior resources. So I do get to do a fair bit of mentoring and teaching, and that's another thing in the
That's
vein of
awesome.
communication is I can't assume what someone does or doesn't know. That can
Right.
get, it can make the junior resource feel like, oh, I should know that. I want to always make it an environment where any question can be brought up. We can always make sure that, if I'm bringing up a technology device type or something, that I check in with them and ensure whether or not they're familiar with it first. So I try to keep that in the back of my mind, like act like when I was a first time engineer, and
Yeah.
not assume people are familiar with things.
That's really, because I think too a lot in technology, people are afraid to say I don't know the answer to this because
Yeah.
they don't want to come off as unintelligent,
Right.
which is not the case. Like I will ask probably the dumbest questions, but at least I'm asking them and people will give me the answer. You mentioned mentorship, so that's one of the things that I think is really important too when trying to get the next generation involved. But I don't want people to forget that we do have the current generation as well. Like we have our baby boomers and the Gen Xers and the millennials.
Yeah.
And I think mentorship can kind of tie all of those generations together. So, what are your thoughts on the importance of mentorship in not just bringing an awareness, but attracting people to this sector and even retaining them? Because if people come in and they feel like, or if people are at our company and they feel stuck, like mentorship, like partnering up with someone could give them that sense of
Yeah.
purpose again, and they could decide to stay instead of leave and look somewhere else. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have personally benefited from that encouragement of mentors. So I completely support and do my best to funnel into the need for that mentorship.
Mhm.
aeSolutions specifically has a mentorship program that they're trying to kind of get off the ground and work
That's cool.
internally to be able to connect. Exactly like you said, we have some more senior people, we have some middle of the road people, and some newer, fresh out of college type employees. And if we can connect between those groups of people who are already within the company,
Mm.
that gives them, if they're, starting off and not everybody is in the office anymore, you can have that direct connection as well in a post-pandemic world of one-on-one time with a more experienced person that's dedicated and is a safe space, like you said, to ask those questions where you absolutely just don't know things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the mentors that I've had starting out in refining in a environment where it's a very fast-paced sink or swim type
Yeah.
workplace. I couldn't have made it without the mentors that I had. So some more experienced electrical and instrumentation engineers taught me so much. And just like you mentioned before on the communication side about having to be able to talk to all different groups and backgrounds of people, I have found it helpful to take the same level of learning from any group, be that technicians in the field, be
Hmm.
that controls engineers in a control room that's away from the engineering building I'm in. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. They have a different skill set and level of experience that you can learn from. So
Yeah.
that, I think, is one way that mentorship can show up in a less obvious form, is just talking to other people in other disciplines and other operating groups within a facility. You're going to be able to learn from them.
Yeah. And then on the topic of learning, because I feel like in this sector, you're never going to stop learning and you always have to like be self-disciplined and expanding your knowledge on things because things are forever changing and
Yep.
they're changing at quicker paces. And you recently um, announced that you earned your functional safety expert certification. And, you know, what is that first off? Because I
Yeah.
don't know. And then second off, like, why is it important in your mind to have that continuous learning? Why do so much of us need to keep up to date with the trends and stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. First off, I guess to answer your question, the CFSE Certified Functional Safety Expert is a certification given out by a company called Exida, and
Okay.
they do a lot with providing what we call failure rate data for devices in the field. So my job involves designing safety systems that have to rely on a tested and proven kind of availability rate, or flip that, it's a failure rate. So I figure out, okay,
Okay.
if we're going to use this pressure transmitter to make sure a tank doesn't overpressure, it's got to have a certain level of reliability. So companies like
Okay.
Exida test hardware and make sure, all right, this is a value that you can use that's been proven, and you know that this transmitter is going to be available this percentage of the time. Anyway, so that's kind of their company's all about functional safety, and it's a credential that I knew would give me greater confidence in my job. So
That's cool.
it's a credential that proves I am certified to design safety systems per the standards and codes that we operate on in this industry. And it gives credence to clients that I know what I'm doing, at
Yeah.
least by this certified body. And
Yeah.
it definitely takes away a little bit of my own imposter syndrome to be like, okay, I at least can point to this piece of paper and say, even beyond a college degree, like I've gotten expertise in this specific set of standards that I
Yeah.
use in my daily work life.
And sometimes as a woman in a male dominated sector, we need that extra piece of paper just so that they're like, oh yeah, you do know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. It's like,
yeah.
yes,
It
I
it
do.
does
Thank
not
you.
hurt. It does not hurt. I in my first job, there wasn't necessarily as big a focus on professional development and continued learning. There were some training courses that I could take on specific hardware or logic solvers and things like that. But with aeSolutions
Mhm.
specifically, I've found a greater drive because we have a dedicated professional development program with
That's
some
cool.
kind of some incentive based bonuses even for different certifications. So I was a little bit encouraged to do this CFSE exam because I got a bonus for it. And same thing with a professional
That's really
engineering
cool.
license. Yeah, yeah. So they're putting a lot of investment here into employees and truly backing up the fact that if they have an employee base who feels technically competent and truly are the safety experts, then we can better serve our clients and progress our mission of process
Yeah.
safety.
So that was going to be my next question. Like what, and you brought up some things that AE is already doing to get employees up that ladder. What are some other thoughts of yours where companies can kind of change what they're doing to invest more into their employee success? Like what else could they do aside from providing bonuses or other incentives? Like, is there other thoughts that you have on getting employees excited to keep learning and doing things outside of their work hours?
Yeah, I think the bonuses are a personal motivation of mine for sure. But I like also the idea of cross discipline training being available. So it can
Okay.
be so easy to silo employees and say, well, you're really great at this one type of design. Just go stay there and do that forever. I find it encouraging if a company is open to saying, hey, why don't you go learn a little bit on the hardware side rather than just conceptual design, or go on a site visit with somebody who knows how to review a process unit for code violations or things like that. We
Hmm.
can, we can bring people along if we're willing to, shell out that little extra cost to have them attend a site visit or something like that, and give them experience on a whole new type of
Yeah.
task that they never had done before. So yeah, just being open and willing to maybe invest that time and a little extra cost so that people
Yeah.
can get exposure into areas they're not currently working in, I think is huge.
And I think it's a good thing to give them a sense of empowerment too, because I think one of the things that some companies miss out on is, empowering your employees. And when you trust them with stuff like that and you show them you're willing to invest in them so that they can continue to be successful, empowerment leads to more innovation and creativity,
Definitely.
more production, more motivation. So, what other ways could you empower your employees and continuous education? Because college is not cheap, classes are not cheap. So,
Yeah.
if they can take on that cost, I used to work with a girl. She does 3D renderings of machine components.
Cool.
Coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Coolest thing ever. And she's a pretty quick learner. So like she just has one of those minds where when she learns something new, she picks it up fairly quickly. It
Oh,
it drives me nuts that she can do
so jealous.
that because
Yeah.
sometimes my brain doesn't retain information. But she went through a course. I think the platform is Keyshot, and she went through that course and now she does it as a side gig too. So
Wow.
outside of her actual manufacturing job, she helps other companies create these video renderings. So if anybody needs a video rendering,
All
you know a
right.
person.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's super cool about it, and it's just it looks fun, but I don't have enough time in the day to learn that. But the other thing that we talked about when I met with you before was the International Society of Automation, and I
Yeah.
wanted you to talk about that a little bit and what part you play in that, and some of the things the organization does. Because I think I just thought it was fun to hear about that, and I'm going to automate, and I don't know if they're part of that show or not, but I'm going to automate this May and really excited because it's my first time ever going there. So, um,
Excellent. Yeah, we may or may not have people going. I'm sure there probably are. So, the International Society of Automation is a global organization of automation professionals. And when we say automation, that umbrella is pretty huge. It can
yeah,
cover so many different industrial areas. It breaks it up into technical divisions if you want to be involved in groups that collaborate on specific technical niche areas. But most importantly, there are local sections or chapters of
okay,
professionals all over the country and over the world. So I'm part of the Western Carolinas. So we kind of just have a chunk in South and North Carolina, the Western piece, that we have um, a local board set of members, and we organize technical meetings to provide periodic meetings that are educational and can count towards continuing education credits,
okay,
um, things like that. We also, may have just social events. It's networking with all your
hmm
geographically local peers, we do things like raising money for scholarship fundraisers for
Okay.
local students who are going into STEM fields. So we've done things like going and renting out the first floor of a Top Golf, if you've ever been to a Top Golf, and have a lot of other vendors and companies come together, pay for booths, and raise money for students. So we like to be able to try and feed into supporting our future funnel of engineers coming up, right?
Yeah. I
But
think
so that's
yeah, I think the scholarship part is really important too, because there's a lot of kids out there who are hesitant to even apply to different levels of education because they might not come from, a community with
definitely.
money. So scholarships I'm always a huge fan of, and I'm trying to learn how I can get more involved with the various ones that are out there for STEM. So that huge applause for them to do that.
Yeah.
Emily, we're coming up time. I do want to pull up Greg. You're gonna love
Hi, Greg.
automate. Hi, Greg. Thanks for joining. You have a killer beard, by the way. Love that. Keep growing that out. I'm a huge beard fan. So, um, but Emily, before I let you go, I just wanted to see if you had any more closing thoughts, and then if you had an ask for our audience, what would your biggest ask be for them?
I think, like you brought up, continuing to encourage young people to explore STEM, and even if you don't want to immediately join a first team, maybe just go check out a local competition if you can find one near you. It was so neat for me to see some of the younger tier versions of first. I ended up checking out some first Lego stuff when I was in college after I had left first high school version, and they brought in like a NASA astronaut to come talk to these kids doing their Lego experiments. It was so cool.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. So if you're able to find any local affiliations, which I think they're in every state just about, so hopefully people
Mhm.
can find their local resources just to support it or see it and show it to somebody. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is too, and I have this conversation all the time, is if you don't, kids tend to be a little standoffish with adults, in my experience.
Sure.
There are some kids that are very like, no, I'm going to talk to everybody, and I don't care about stranger danger, and it's fine. Um, but I just feel like in certain instances, kids are naturally curious and they want to know about this stuff, but they just don't know what type of questions to ask until you start that conversation with them. So
Yeah.
I just want people to just, if you see a kid at these competitions, engage with them, talk to them, ask them questions about why they got involved, and just keep that conversation going, because those types of conversations they're going to remember, and that's going to
Definitely.
inspire them to do something else. So I think that's really cool. And then I just want to call out Dan. I joined ISA
Yeah.
last year myself. I met
Awesome, Daniel.
yep, I met him at Automation Fair last year, I think, or the beginning of this year. Time is flying by so fast, and I lose track of days. But Emily, I just want to thank you for joining Mavens of Manufacturing. This was so much fun, and
Thank
I hope I
you.
can see you again at an upcoming event, because you're just a cool person, and I like hanging out with you
Same.
and learning from you. But if people want to learn more about yourself or aeSolutions, where should they go, and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. And aeSolutions.com is the website for aeSolutions if you want to learn more. But yeah, feel free to message me on LinkedIn, and be happy to share any information I can. Thank you for having me, Megan. This was really,
Yeah.
really fun.
Thanks again. And to everyone that's tuning in, happy St. Patrick's Day. Go
Woo.
grab a beer or a great iced whiskey. Yes, I'm encouraging to take work off early and go drink. Tune in next week. We got another great episode, and I hope you all have a great weekend.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Good to see you. Bye.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.